Hello folks, I'm here today with the Cupra Formentor VZ2. This one's got 310 PS of power and delivers a 0 to 62 time of 4.9 seconds. The one I've got here is just over 45 grand. It should be 44,300, but it's got the paint option on there that takes it just over the 45. You can get a V1 version of the Cupra from just over £31,000. Now the difference between the V Cupras and the VZ Cupras are the engine options. The Vs come in options up to 204 PS of power if you go for the hybrid, where when you go for the VZ cars you've got a choice between 245 PS of power and this 310 PS monster. Now folks, is this an SUV? Is it a hot hatch? Is it neither? Is it both? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. To me, it feels like a slightly higher riding hot hatch. Certainly doesn't feel like an SUV when you're in it, but it's got some of the benefits of the SUV. So it's got a tiny bit more boot space, got a tiny bit more legroom in the back, and a slightly higher driving position. Personally, I'm a big fan of the styling of this car, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. I really like this grey paint as well. Some of you are going to say it looks like it's, you know, in primer and it needs to go to the spray booth. I think it looks awesome. So the boot space is a very respectable 420 litres, which puts it about 40 ahead of things like the Golf. Nice and easy shape to use. It's actually got a little bit of a load lip, which I personally like, because it stops all your shopping falling out every 5 minutes. Also got some handy little hooks here, and you've got some little pulls for the rear seats. Rear seats, by the way, are split 60-40 with a little ski hatch through the middle. Nothing to complain about here. So in the back here, first thing to point out is there's loads of foot room, which is not actually that common in cars these days, and plenty of legroom, just small pockets down here. Plenty of headroom for me. I'm only about 5'9½", something like that. A couple of air vents here. Climate controls for in the back, and you've got 2 USB-C, so plenty of connectivity. This is the Napa leather interior, which is really nice quality material, all padded nicely, looks pretty trick as well. The middle seat is a good 2/3 of a seat. You could definitely squeeze a couple of cheeks onto that, but there is quite a big transmission tunnel there, so you are going to have to share a little bit of this foot space with the middle passenger, should you be carrying one. Material quality in here is generally good, certainly acceptable. This is all a bit nasty, but how often are you going to sit there like this in the back of this car? I don't know. Got a nice leather grab handle there. The rest of it feels fairly decent, to be fair. Once you move into the front, things definitely take a step for the better. It's lovely in here. You've got this really interesting material. I'm not sure what it is. It looks a bit like brushed aluminium, but actually it's some kind of plastic, but it feels very durable, very nice. Then up here, it looks like it's leather wrapped, but it's actually just a very squishy material with like copper stitching on it. Again, looks amazing with all these little copper accents that are throughout the dash, on the steering wheel, etc. You've got wireless charging pad down here and a couple of USB-Cs. Then this tiny drive select controller down here, a couple of cup holders, one of them's tiny actually, and a few little cubbies here and there, which are all quite useful. 12-volt socket in there, by the way, just under the armrest. Steering wheel is an absolute triumph. If you're used to VW Audi Group cars, then you'll be fairly familiar with this steering wheel, or certainly this style. The leather that they've wrapped the steering wheel with is fantastic quality. You've got just the right number of buttons in just the right places. You've got this Cupra drive mode selector here, which is again massively convenient, and you've also got your start stop for the engine mounted on the steering wheel, so you don't have to go fishing around for it behind here somewhere. You've got flappy paddles for the gearbox. Really lovely, crisp, bright, great contrast driver information display, very customizable as you might expect. This is certainly one of the best driver information displays that I've seen since I've been doing this as a job. Onto the main infotainment system. It's a little bit frustrating. Firstly, you've got wireless Apple CarPlay, which is brilliant. There's tons of real estate there and everything looks great. It's not laggy really. You know, it's good. It just works as well as you could expect it to. It's very, very good. What's not so great is the standard infotainment system can just be a tiny bit frustrating at times. By no means is this the worst one on the market. It's a long, long way away from it. It can just be a tiny bit frustrating, and a lot of those frustrations come from these daft haptic controls. So to control the aircon, you know, you've got these haptics here instead of a little dial, and they work some of the time. Sometimes they don't. You have to press them quite a lot harder than you think. You've also got the same thing for volume, And again, when it doesn't just easily work every time, it just becomes a frustration. Luckily for the volume control, at least, you've got a really simple little thumb control on the steering wheel. And of course you can use the voice commands to set the temperature, and I have to say that works really well. So the shortcomings there are made up for here, because you know, that just does deal with a lot of the shortcomings of this system. It just seems like frustration that doesn't need to be there. Gives a volume knob and a couple of little dials for the aircon, and we're all happy. Please. Now, one of the things you can do in this infotainment system is really customize the driving experience to your absolute personal taste. It's so customizable, it's unbelievable, really. Saw the same thing in the Cupra Leon, but you can just customize just about every facet of the suspension, the gearbox response. You name it, you can customize it via this screen. For example, if we go into DCC, which is the dynamic chassis response that this particular car has, that basically controls your suspension and how that works, how it feels. I think you've got about 19 different options, 18 or 19 different options. So instead of just comfort and sport and Cupra being the sportiest of all, you've got all these different levels of it. So you can really make minute little changes to the driving experience. And the great thing with it is they all really do make a difference. I mean, I've just driven here in comfort mode, and it's just a lovely thing to drive. Very comfortable, nice and quiet, great. If you put it into full Cupra mode, it becomes a rip snorting beast of a car. It's an animal, and you can have everything in between, and it really feels like the car is changing its personality just with the toggle of a few of these different options. One thing I will point out here is that we've got an engine sound option. We've got pure, comfort, sport, and then Cupra. Now that engine sound is actually being piped into the cabin. The actual engine sound of the car is nothing remarkable at all, but with this sort of engine sound getting piped in, it really makes quite a difference. It makes it feel much more gnarly, much more... All in all though, folks, once you get into this car, it really feels very special, and it feels much more special to me than something like a Golf R does. And obviously this car is very closely related to a Golf R. It just feels like it's got a bit more personality. Now, having just spoken to you so eloquently about the different drive modes in this car, what better way than to demonstrate this than to actually get out on the road? I've got the car in comfort at the moment. I could be driving anything, it's just nice and smooth. I've just gone over a fairly rough bit of road here, and it soaks up the worst of the bumps really, really well. Acceleration is still there in spades, but it's not so immediate. It's not kind of punchy. The gearbox is slightly more relaxed. Everything is just comfortable, hence the name Comfort, I guess. If we go into sport mode now, the second you do that, you feel a bit more immediacy. It's kind of like the gas pedal tightens up a bit almost. It feels like it wants to go. The gearbox is waiting for you to just take that next gear. It's ready to rock. Then we get into Cupra mode, and we've got that engine sound getting piped in here. The suspension's much, much firmer. I'm on a less bumpy road here, but it's crashing and banging around like a beast. But the road holding is phenomenal. You also get some fairly theatrical downshifts, which my mic's probably not picking up. But really and truly, the customization options you've got there in those drive modes just change things up so much that it's like you're in a different car. It's great. Now, this car's always going to get compared to the Golf R, but I personally think that's a bit unfair. You should compare the Cupra Leon to the Golf R because they're essentially the same thing. This feels different. It's that slightly higher driving position. It's slightly more practical. I don't know what it is, but I'd rather have one of these. I love it. I really do love this car. It's great. Just the fact that you could take it to Sainsbury's during the week if you're too posh for Lidl and not posh enough for Waitrose, much like me, but you could take it to the track at the weekend, and it's got a mode to suit, and you can still fit the kids and the dog and the wife in the thing. You know, it ticks a lot of boxes, this one. The suspension's got so many different options, it seems daft even talking about it, because you know, you can go from really quite a nice soft suspension through to something that's going to knock your teeth out. The steering the same. I mean, just in comfort mode, the steering feels great, but put it into Cupra and it immediately becomes that bit more precise. You really have confidence that the car's going to go where you're pointing it. The DSG gearbox in this one is one I'm extremely familiar with, and does the job really well, and it mates well to this particular engine. What I would say is when you're first taking off, you can get a tiny sort of half a second or 0.2 of a second delay just before things really kick into play, and that's typical of a DSG, to be fair. Some people find them a tiny bit jerky as well, but I actually really enjoy the experience of driving a new DSG. It sort of sits somewhere between that feel of a manual and an automatic, and of course you've got the flappy paddles, so you can have the best of both worlds. And if you really want to get off the line like a scolded dog, then you've got launch control on this one as well. Considering this 2-litre petrol engine puts out 310 PS of power, I also have to say that it's not hideous when it comes to the MPG. WLTP on it's about 33, but since I've had the car, I've got about 27 from it on average. Obviously, if you drive it like an absolute idiot, you're going to get a lot less than that. But just driving normally with the odd little burst of Cupra mode excitement, you'll get late 20s with it, which, you know, it's not a Yaris Cross by any means, but it's not a Yaris Cross by any means. And there are plenty of cars with a 0 to 60 time greater than this that will struggle to get into double digits if you drive them enthusiastically. So I really don't think it's that bad. Now, these Napa leather bucket seats are fantastic. They hold you like a glove. The material quality is very good indeed. And Cupra have also put in a very passable lower lumbar support. You've also got memory functions, and this one is fully electric. So in summary then, this is sort of a brilliant car that does just about everything, and it does just about everything really well. I'd have one tomorrow. In fact, I like this so much that when the chap from Cupra appears to take this back in a day or so's time, I'm going to take up a sniping position on the roof, take him out, and then flee the country with this car. Folks, if you'd like to have a look at the latest lease deals available on the Cupra Formentor, please click on the link to Lease Loco in the video description and pinned as the top comment. That will take you to all the latest deals on the Cupra Formentor at the time you click that link, as it updates in real time. Please give this video a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and please follow me on Facebook, Instagram and/or Twitter. Thanks ever so much for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one.